one.
All happy families are alike, but an unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Leo Tolstoy wrote these words for the beginning of Anna Karenina in the 1870s, but they still hold true today. 22% of middle-class marriages in America will end in divorce for multiple reasons, including addiction or illness, infidelity, abuse, marrying too young, and problems with communication or child rearing. I'm going to talk to you about one of the first causes, and that's addiction or illness. All of the books I read and the statistics that I've looked at for this speech only made it more apparent to me that I was one of those people that was a statistic. I have been married twice, the first time to an alcoholic and a drug addict and a physical abuser. I thought I could change him. I thought he wouldn't hit me after the first, second, third time. This is something that left a lot of scars for both me and my children, and took years of growing, learning, and maturing to finally realize that I was never at fault for any of it. I was simply young and in love. A book by John Gottman, PhD, titled Why Marriages Succeed or Fail, gave multiple reasons why couples try to stay together when they're in abusive marriages. The main one was they think they can change the abuser. This is something that is usually not ever going to happen. According to Gottman, there are two portraits of marital meltdown. The first kind is a free fall toward destruction, and it's called the hostile engaged type. These couples often argue haughtily. Insults, name-calling, put-downs, sarcasm, and is all part of their repertoire. This is exactly what my first husband and I were. I contribute that to being young. I was spoiled only child, and the way I grew up, my dad spoiled my mom. Well, after his alcoholism and drug addiction was out in the open, which I, of course, just blindly didn't look at, I've also found out that his mom was basically nothing but his father's slave. That was why he expected me to be his slave, and that is where we didn't get along. Gottman believes, as do a lot of therapists, that the way you were raised is the type of marriage you will have, or you will expect to have. And according to Gottman, in one of the chapters that really hit home with me, titled The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. First horseman is criticism, the second is contempt, third is defensiveness, and the fourth horseman is stonewalling. I read the fixes that Gottman gave to couples to try, but I know none of these are really anything a person can change. It would take an awful lot to change what I believe is your personality. That is where all of these come from. I give kudos to those who can make it through these four horsemen and find a happy marriage again, but with mine it was just going to continue forever. My husband would not try to change anything. He would not stop drinking. He would not stop doing drugs, and of course he would not stop abusing me. I unfortunately couldn't find a statistic in this book anywhere stating how many couples can recover from such therapy as Gottman teaches. The second cause I'm going to talk to you about is infidelity. This, of course, was my second marriage. Some people may not know that infidelity is actually more of addiction than a choice. Once again, this is coming from personal experience, and from going to counseling for this, I did find out that my husband had what they call a sex addiction, which is just as bad as a drug addiction or alcohol addiction. We were not able to change because, once again, it's an addiction, and the person that has the addiction needs to want to change or believe they have a problem. He, however, didn't. So, after months and months of therapy, we just decided to call it quits. It was okay for him to be with all kinds of other women as long as he still told me he loved me. Those are funny words when I think about it now. The statistics for infidelity were basically the same as addiction and illness. Hard to find different reasons for getting divorced. There are a couple of very good resources for people out there. One is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administrations, and the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Both of these can help anyone in any part of the country. Now Melissa will talk to you about abuse and marrying too young.
Like in the beginning, she said that 22% of middle class marriages end. But in a lot of them end because of abuse, but intimate partner violence affects people regardless of income. There are there are some common types of abuse between partners. Physical abuse, like hitting or even just denying your spouse medical care. Sexual abuse, pressure into sexual behavior, marital rape, and attacks on sexual parts. Emotional abuse, which demeaning the victim, taking away their self-worth, self-esteem, and constant criticism of what they do. Economic and financial abuse, controlling financial resources. Physical abuse, or psychological abuse, where the abuser causes fear through intimidation. And there's also a cycle to this domestic abuse. It's build up, blow up, and make up. And due to this cycle, many people that are abused never leave their abuser. So many marriages don't end because the cycle continues. On average, 3 women and 1 man are murdered by an intimate partner every day. A national abuse hotline has been set up to help people to take steps towards ending the relationship or just for support. Divorce is not only caused by partner abuse, but can also be caused by abuse towards the children. In a national survey, 50% of men and women who frequently assault their partners also assault their children. A form of psychological abuse towards children is making the children witness you abusing your partner. Abuse in the home studies suggest that between 3.3 to 10 million children witness abuse daily. And now we'll discuss how marrying too young can cause divorce.
Okay. The 4th cause of divorce is marrying too young. The problem here is marrying too young is one of the causes why people divorce. Most of teenagers lack maturity and are not ready to get married. Author of Teenager Marriage, James Warren Lindsay said, many teenagers jumps into marriage in hope of finding escape from an unhappy home. Usually they perceive marriage as a way out for their problems. However, after being married, they find marriage responsibility too overwhelming. Additionally, pregnancy pushes them to marry early even though they are not ready to face those responsibilities. As the leader of Child Welfare League of America, David Liebman said, teenagers make the marriage decision out of the sense of responsibility. Teenagers usually find it hard to live together, care for one another, and care for their children if they have one. They are also confronted to financial issues to cover their family expense. They usually drop out of school to make money. However, many of them find their life too stressful. This explains the common divorce rate among young people. Marriage confronts teenagers to changes that they are not expecting when they get married. It turned out to be really new and hard experiences for them. And it turned out to be hard also for them to manage everyday life as a couple. Jen Lindsay added, each partner is developing his own identity and going in a different way. And often they can't keep up the original relationship together. Teenagers are not well prepared to for marriage because they lack the sense of the psychological security they need to sustain a solid relationship. Now that I've talked to you about marriage too young being one of the causes of divorce, Jessica will now talk to you about the communication problem being another cause as well.
Being unable to effectively communicate is another cause of divorce. Many people have different ideas on what they want from a relationship and how they deal with problems. Dr. John Gottman, author of Why Marriages Succeed or Fail, identifies 3 different types of marital styles based on how they communicate with each other: validating, volatile, and avoidant. Couples in a validating relationship are able to respectfully discuss their problems to reach a compromise. Those who have a volatile relationship argue frequently and heatedly. The final type, avoidant, is characterized by the couple's tendency to ignore and make light of their problems rather than resolve them. According to Gottman, all 3 of these marriage types can lead to a loving and happy relationship. But if a couple is mismatched in how they deal with conflict, there relationship will become strained and unbalanced. Gottman also found in his research that lasting and stable marriages have a ratio of 5 positive feelings and interactions for every negative. Whether the couple fought often or avoided their issues, as long as this ratio stayed the same, the couple's relationship was likely to succeed. He also identified what he called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse for marriages: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Criticizing the person instead of their actions is detrimental to a relationship. Criticisms are more personal and negative than just complaints and are more likely to hurt the other person and make them defensive. What separates contempt, the second horseman, from criticism, it is that it is intended to insult and wound the other partner. Because married couples know exactly where to hit where it will hurt the most, contempt in a relationship can be very damaging. The lack of respect and unresolved anger will harm any positive feelings they have for each other. Defensiveness, Gottman's third horseman, leads to feeling victimized by the other partner and refusing to take responsibility. It is understandable for people to want to defend themselves from insults. That is why defensiveness is so destructive. The defensive party doesn't see anything wrong with the way they're acting, but it usually just escalates the argument instead of resolving anything. Withdrawal from a relationship, or stonewalling, is Gottman's final horseman. Some people think that stonewalling is just acting neutral and are trying to keep from escalating the argument, but stonewalling projects disapproval and distance. When one spouse withdraws and disengages from any further conversation, it can be difficult to heal the relationship. While none of Gottman's 4 horsemen are guaranteed to lead to divorce, they are present in most marriages that split up. Good communication is the foundation of any strong relationship, marital or otherwise. Another significant cause of divorce is problems involving children, whether the death of a child, infertility, or differences in childbearing. A study conducted by Dr. Catherine Gold at the University of Michigan found that couples who have experienced a miscarriage or stillbirth are more likely to split up even years later than those who've had a child. The study analyzed the results of nearly 8,000 pregnancies and found that after a miscarriage, couples were 22% more likely to divorce. The divorce rate peaked between a year and a half and 3 years later before it returned to rates similar to other couples. For a stillbirth, however, the risk of divorce is even higher and lasts longer. Couples who lose a child after 20 weeks are 40% more likely to break up, a rate which can last as long as a decade after the loss. Infertile couples often use alternate forms of having a child, including adoption, in vitro fertilization, or surrogates. This process can be very emotionally and financially draining and can cause marital problems. If one partner desperately wants to try to have a child and one partner might not put as high a priority on it, that could be a deal breaker, says Laura S. Scott, author and head of the Childless by Choice Project. Couples also do not always discuss ahead of time how much money, time, and effort they want to put into for trying for a child, which can lead to arguments down the road. Parents' lack of consensus over how to raise their children can lead to disagreements serious enough to cause the end of the relationship. The pressures of disciplining children and finding the balance between time at work and time with the family can lead to discontent in any marriage. Discipline in particular can be a problem with parents. One parent may feel they always have to be the bad guy or are otherwise unhappy with the way responsibilities are divided up. These factors and many more contribute to a couple deciding to end their marriage. But is there any way to heal a relationship before it ends in divorce court? Dr. Genevieve Clapp, author of Divorce and New Beginnings, found that it takes on average 2 years to recover from a divorce. To avoid those years of pain and struggle, we believe that these solutions, setting an age limit for marriage, counseling, prenuptial agreements, living together before getting married, making divorces harder to get, and temporary separations, may help couples and overall lower the national divorce